While I was at the hospital with my grandfather in his final days, my father put my house under mortgage for my sister. When I came back, he said, "She needed it more than you." I grabbed my jacket and said, "Then don't complain about what happens now. My name is Daniel. I'm 33, the oldest, the spreadsheet kid who grew into the spreadsheet adult in our family. I'm the calm one, the person with jumper cables, the person who knows which cabinet has the light bulbs. My sister, Leia, is the bright one. She's the main act. I'm the sound check. That was fine for a long time. I don't need spotlights. I like things working. I own a small 2-bedroom on the edge of town. I fix my own leaky faucets, label my breaker box, and put extra batteries in a clear bin because chaos starts with dead remotes. I work at a community college. Not glamorous. I like it. Students call me sir, and I pretend I'm not startled. On the Tuesday this started, I was in a hospital room with my grandfather. Machines breathed for him in slow, steady whooshes. The clock on the wall ticked like it had somewhere else to be. I'd slept on the vinyl chair for 2 nights. Arms crossed over a jean jacket that still smelled like laundry soap from a rushed wash. I held his hand and told him about the Cardinals game from the night before, because routine sounded merciful. My phone sat face down on the rolling tray with the warm ginger ale and plastic cups. It kept buzzing with unknown numbers. I silenced it. I poured water for my grandmother. I walked her to the window and back. We talked about nothing on purpose. When she fell asleep, I checked my phone and saw 3 voicemails from a number labeled County Title Services. No one ever calls you from a title office with good news. I put the phone back down without listening. My brain had room for one crisis. At noon, my father walked in with 2 coffees and a tall energy I recognized from Little League games he forced himself to enjoy. He kissed Grandma's forehead, squeezed my shoulder, and pulled me into the hallway with the vending machines. "You look tired," he said. "I am." He glanced at my phone. "Put that away. Today's not a day for paperwork." I didn't say anything about paperwork. I said, "Good, because your sister has a lot on her plate." And he stopped, corrected. "We all have a lot on our plates." A nurse walked by pushing a cart that rattled. Dad lowered his voice. "After this," he said, meaning the hospital, meaning my grandfather dying in a room full of plastic plants. "Let's talk. Nothing dramatic, just some family logistics." "Now," I asked because he had that look like when you drop a topic in your lap and then call you defensive when you try to hand it back. "Not now," he said. "Later, don't start. Be generous." He said, "Be generous the way some people say be quiet." Back in the room, my aunt leaned over the bed and whispered a prayer. Dad handed me one of the coffees. It was sweet the way Mom drinks it, not how I take mine. He looked at the machines. The whoosh whoosh whoosh. "We're lucky to have each other," he said. "Eyes on the monitor, not me. Your sister needs us. Don't make everything a debate." I didn't answer. The first trigger wasn't a fight. It was that sentence landing like a folded note slid across a desk. Be generous. Don't make it a debate. I put the coffee on the tray, took my grandfather's hand again, and watched the clock keep telling on us. I didn't wake up one day and find a mess. It was a slow drip. Leia was golden from birth. Yearbooks, pep rallies, people who remembered her birthday, without Facebook. My job at home was to carry the cooler and somehow also be invisible while I carried it. At 19, Leia blew a tire leaving a party because there were nails in the road. I Venmo'd the tow guy because he only takes one card. At 21, she lost her wallet at a music festival and called in the rain crying. I drove an hour and paid the motel because she had no ID and they were being mean. At 25, she tried to start a candle shop on Etsy. I made her a simple budget and a silly logo in an afternoon. She sent me a scented sample and left the spreadsheet unopened. When I asked how she planned to cover inventory, she said, "You always figure it out." Our parents helped in their way. Dad runs a small contracting crew. He knows every tool brand by sound. Mom gardens like she's auditioning for a magazine that will never call. They love us. They love Ela out loud. They love me quietly and asked me to be understanding whenever quiet felt like a bruise. When I was 25, I bought the house with Dad's help. He insisted on being on the title to lock a better rate, and because one day we'll do a family trust and it'll be easier. I trusted him. We never got around to the trust. Work, holidays, Leia's emergencies. It stayed a line on a deed we both had. There were little humiliations that piled up into tall things. Mom would hand me a bill just this once. Dad would ask me to float payroll for his crew. 2 days max. Leia used my Amazon account and sent me a picture of a ring light with the caption for the brand. If I hesitated, someone would call me rigid. If I asked to follow up, someone would say, "We're family, not a bank." 3 months ago, Leia decided to open a wellness studio. Not a gym, not a spa, something in between with plants and neon. She had a Pinterest board and a lease she loved, and a landlord who needs a confident yes. She needed deposit build-out equipment numbers that were big shoes. "I can't," I said, "because sometimes you can't. My mortgage, my roof, a water heater that we sometimes offered knowledge." I offered to look at cash flow, at equipment lease options, at used machines that were still good. She rolled her eyes. "God, you're so administrative." Dad said, "We'll figure it out." In the weeks that followed, figure it out turned into me getting little pings. A bank email. "Your mailing address has been updated." A text from Dad. "Need your insurance binder for the house." Just double checking. A group chat where Mom wrote, "Proud of us for coming together." When I asked, Dad brushed it off as routine. "Housekeeping, nothing heavy." He told me not to be dramatic. So when those voicemails from County Title Services came while I was at the hospital, I didn't listen. My grandfather mattered more than my inbox. But his words stuck. Be generous. They looped in my head while the machine in the corner breathed like a tired animal. Grandpa passed Wednesday morning, quietly, the way he wanted. We signed papers, hugged in that hollow way that doesn't quite land, then drove home in that stunned, floaty silence where every stoplight feels too bright. After 3 days of hospital air, I walked into my house and found 2 envelopes on the mat. One from a bank I already used, another from a bank I didn't. I hung my jacket, fed the cat, took a too-hot shower, then sat at the table with a towel on my head, like I was younger than I am, and opened the envelopes as if they might be birthday cards. The first, "Welcome to your new home equity line of credit." Bright and cheerful, it listed a credit limit, a variable APR, and an initial advance of $68,000, already funded to third-party escrow. The second, county recorder confirmation, a deed of trust against my house. My name, the amount. My hands went cold like my bones had remembered winter. I called Dad. He picked up on the second ring, like he'd been waiting. "Breathe," he said first, like I'd already started yelling. I hadn't even spoken. "We handled it." "What is it?" "The house, the equity," he said, sounding almost cheerful. "We used a line. It's smart money. Low interest. Leia needed it to close the lease." "You mortgaged my house," I said, the words unreal in my own mouth. "Come on." "Our house," he corrected, quick. "I'm on the title, too. It was time that property did something for the family. Your sister needs a push. It's investment, Daniel. You didn't ask me." He sighed into the phone, like I was late to something already agreed upon. "If I asked, you'd have made a whole production out of it. That's why I told you after. She needed it more than you." There it was. The sentence. Flat enough to make me want to laugh. I looked around my kitchen at the cheap clock, the scuffed chair, the list of small things I'd said yes to my whole life, and felt the word more slide like a drawer stuck until you yank harder. "How much?" I asked. 68 to start, he said. Then a draw schedule as she hits milestones. "We'll cover the interest from the business until it's standing on its own. It's a family project." "No," I said, calm, like when I tell students to hold the power button for 10 seconds. "It's my house, Daniel." He softened his voice, the same one that used to make me feel like a good son. "Gentle now. Don't make me the bad guy for doing what's best for your sister. She's got timing. You've got stability. We're balancing." I looked at the cat. He blinked. My towel dripped on my shoulder. My jacket hung heavy on the hook. "When did you sign?" I asked. "Yesterday." "Don't spiral. Get some sleep. We'll come by after dinner. Your mother already made a casserole." He hung up. Just like that. As if the whole thing was settled, I rested my head on the table for a moment and listened to the house. The fridge hummed. The faucet dripped once, then caught itself. The cat scratched at the mat like he was practicing leaving. I checked the bank mailer again. On the second page, a line about the right to cancel within 3 business days. I read it twice. Over the words, I could hear Dad's voice. Be generous. Don't make it a debate. Hila texted a glittery photo of an empty storefront with the caption "Key Day" and a row of hearts. I set my phone face down. In the bedroom, I pulled down the shoebox with the deed copies. The ones the closing paralegal had handed me years ago with a smile that said, "You did a grown-up thing today." Inside, tucked behind the manila tabs where I hadn't left it, was an extra paper. My father's neat handwriting. Labeled line info in black pen, underlined twice. 7 hours after my grandfather died, my father had mortgaged my house. He called it balancing. He called me generous in advance. He assumed I'd stay quiet. He was almost right. I called a meeting. That's how my brain works. Calendar first, chaos later. Group text, 5:02 p.m., my place. 7:30, non-negotiable. Mom sent a heart. Dad wrote, "We're not fighting about this." Ila wrote, "I have a walkthrough at 7:00. I replied. Then come at 8. Before they arrived, I made a list. I always do better with lists. I printed the welcome letter, the deed copy, my mortgage statement, the line about rescission before midnight on the third business day. I called the bank, asked practical questions in the same voice I'd used to reset a router. The woman on the phone was kind in that way a step stool is kind when the cupboard's too high. When my family came through the door, they carried two kinds of air, perfume and sawdust, and the heaviness of what we were about to do to each other. Mom set foil pans on the counter like armor. "We brought dinner," she said brightly. "Sit," I said. My voice surprised me. Steady enough to carry a box. Dad scanned the room like he was appraising, the way he always does. Ila went straight to the mirror and fixed her hair. I laid the papers on the table and pointed at the line about rescission. "I'm canceling the line," I said. Silence did its own math. Everyone calculating how much of that sentence was bluff. Dad broke first. "Don't. You'll embarrass me. The broker is a friend." "I'm not interested in your friend's feelings," I said. "Or your timeline. Or being the quiet hero while you announce business plans on Facebook." Ila laughed. "You're being dramatic. It's leverage." "You took my roof and called it leverage," I said. "Our roof," Dad corrected. "I'm on the paper. Don't act like you built this alone." Mom touched my arm. "Your sister is finally doing something. Don't kick her knees." "I'm not. I'm taking my house back." Dad's jaw tightened. "You've always been small about money." "Precise," I said. "There's a difference." Ila crossed her arms. "You love rules. Here's a rule. Family helps. You've got stability. I've got ambition." "Dad made a call," I said. "Dad made a theft. And I'm making a boundary." I had already called the bank, had the case number on a sticky note. "I have until midnight tomorrow to cancel. After that, any draw will be fraud. If you try, we'll talk somewhere else, not here." Dad stood. "You'd do this to your sister? You already did it to your son." He pointed at me like I was 10 again. "You want revenge?" "No. Closure." I said that I slid a paper across the table. An agreement. No more shared cards. If Dad stayed on the title, it would be with real terms. If not, he'd sign it away. Either way, the line was gone. Ila whispered, "I'll miss the lease window." "I believe you," I said. "But I'm not the window." Dad looked at me, pride and irritation tangled. "You'll regret this." "Maybe, but it'll be mine." After they left, the missed calls stacked. Text rolled in, "Don't do this. Too late. You owe us." Ila sent lines of drama about timing, humiliation, failure. I answered once. "I want you to separate me from your plans." Dad's voicemail scolded. "You went nuclear." That line was a bridge. "You burned it." Mom's was softer. "You're good with systems. Why didn't you make the bank thing work for everyone?" By evening, Ila showed up, mascara smudged. "You're cruel." "I'm consistent." This was my shot. Dad finally believed in me. He always did. Just not with my collateral. She flinched, then said, "Fine. We'll get money somewhere else. You'll regret this." "Maybe. But in my house." When she left, I shook but stayed sure. That night, I copied my documents, packed originals in a fireproof envelope, changed my passwords, and emailed a real estate attorney that I wrote one line at the bottom. "I want to set a boundary without burning the house down." It made me smile, even though none of this was funny. Grandpa's funeral was Saturday. Black suits, tissues, Dad's eulogy. Family is everything. He looked at me when he said it. I looked at the flowers and thought about how much of my life had been spent paying in that currency. Later, near the coat rack, he said, "You canceled." I did. The lien will release this week. He stared at his shoes. I shouldn't have done it like that. Not an apology, but close enough to let stand at home. I slept better. Dreamed of a door I could lock without someone else's key. On Monday, the attorney called. You acted fast. You're okay. He could open it, but not draw without you. He taught me how to document, how to write letters that count, how to take Dad off the title without a public war. I emailed Dad. Options, trust with rules, or quitclaim and refinance. In bold, you will not use my home as collateral again. 2 days later he replied, we'll do it right. I'll sign off. I shouldn't be in charge of your roof. The kindest line he's ever sent. It still stung. Both can be true.